Hi, I'm Simon and this is The Ordinary Filmmaker. If you're new here, subscribe to get notification of the latest videos that I make, like this one, and all the links to everything I talk about in this video, including gear discussed, are placed in the description down below. Now I'm also giving away a Canon EF 50mm f1.8 lens, and if you'd like a chance to win this, all you have to do is subscribe to my channel. That's it. I do have more details down in the description down below. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about the R5 and the R6 and what I've been thinking. We're only about 2 weeks away from the full-blown announcement. And I wanted to do that outside. I'm kind of tired of being stuck in the basement. So I'm going to give this a shot. I think I've got everything set up properly. I really hope so, because I don't want to have to shoot this again. It's starting to get very humid and very hot. I know it's Canada, but it's supposed to go up to 80 today and 100% humidity, so that's not a lot of fun. We started hearing about the R5, I guess back around January the 27th, and I published a video around the 28th talking about this incredible camera that was going to have 8K RAW, 4K 120, IBIS, and with any one of those things created disbelief amongst the community, let alone all three at once. I got raked over the coals. People didn't believe it. There's no chance that Canon was going to leapfrog the competition. It just wasn't possible. But when Canon came out with their development announcement, probably about 3 or 4 weeks later, people were like, okay, so it's going to have 8K, but it's going to be time-lapse, or they're going to use motion JPEG or something. It just can't be. It can't be. We're not going to get this, right? About 3 or 4 weeks later, Canon Australia said, no, the king is back. We are going to be getting 8K, uncropped, and autofocus in all 8K modes. So there's more than one 8K mode. It's not just 30 frames per second. There are some other options. Wow. Things kept coming. Then on April the 20th, Canon did their, what was going to be their NAB announcement. They talked about many cameras, including the C300 Mark III. And then right at the end, around 52 minutes, they started talking about the R5, and they started talking a bit about their history and where the camera fits in, that it's a 5 series camera. And then they just dropped it on us. This camera's going to have internal 10-bit 422 with C-Log, with H.265, so no motion JPEG for any of you who are thinking we were going to get motion JPEG. And it's going to have RAW. It's going to have 4K uncropped, 8K uncropped. I was sold at that point. I said, I'm going to get the R5, so I put my name on a waiting list a little bit later. I talked to a local camera company, and even though there is no pre-ordering right now, they want our business, so they're willing to create their own list, and then when stock comes in, the people who signed up first will be the first to get gear. Really excited about this, and one of the things that really excited me about the camera wasn't necessarily 8K, and yes, 8K has a use, and I'll get back to that in a minute, but 4K 120, one of my capabilities I'm looking for, and that's essential to me other than really reliable, trustworthy autofocus, is I want detail in 4K and 1080, but I also want buttery smooth slow motion. And you can only really get that with 120 frames per second. So if I'm eventually moving into 4K, well, I want to have that buttery smooth slow motion, which is 120 frames per second, and the R5 gives that to me. Now back to the 8K. If you're quick to dismiss it, well, hold off a minute, because whenever you quickly dismiss something, you're leaving opportunities on the table. I'm shooting in 1080 right now. It's a Canon 70D. It's an old camera. So think of 1080 as this much space here. 4K is 4 times that, so it's about this much space. Now 8K is twice that, so it's this much space. So if I shoot 8K, and I'm not going to shoot everything in 8K, so let's imagine I'm on vacation. I'm Mount Washington, North Conway, New Hampshire. Beautiful mountain, 6,000 feet tall, and I'm shooting panorama, or I'm shooting anything. I'm going to shoot in 8K, and the reason for that is I've got that 8K master file. Now when I get back and I start editing, whether I'm doing 4K or 1080, I now have the ability to crop in, and I can choose different parts within that 8K space, whereas if I just shot in 4K or 1080 and go like, oh, I should have just zoomed in, I should have shot this angle, or I should have shot that angle, I should have zoomed in. And that's what that 8K file gives me. But if I don't have it, no big deal. But that's one of the reasons why I like 4K, is it gives me that ability to do that with 1080. And the other thing I get to do with 8K, if I eventually move into 4K full time, well, what if I shoot everything in 8K and I downsample to 4K? My detail is going to be as good as a C300. I'm not going to get the low light. I'm not going to get the dynamic range of the C300, but it's going to look really good. So I'm on the list for the R5. And then what happens? A couple of weeks ago, Canon Rumors leaks information about the R6 specifications, which I published a video immediately. It looks really good. It's got 10-bit. Now, I'm going to assume it's got 10-bit 422 internal. They could do 420, but usually you'll go 8-bit 422 before you'll go 10-bit and drop it down. But we don't know. Canon's done this to us before, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get 10-bit 422. We're going to get H.265. We're going to get C-Log. We're getting 5K oversampled video. This is looking pretty good. So if I, again, look at the capabilities I'm looking for out of a camera, I'm looking for primarily a video-focused camera. I would like a buttery smooth slow motion, and this isn't going to give it to me at 60 frames per second. It's slow motion, but it's not the greatest. So that's a bit of a downside. But if I get really high detailed 1080, I get detailed 4K, I'm really happy with that. And even if 1080 is a little soft, if I get really sharp 4K, well, I can always shoot in 4K and downsample. And I think what I'm going to start doing, as soon as I get this new camera, whether it's the R6 or the R5, I'm going to shoot 4K all the time. Because that guarantees me I've got much more detail for 1080. It just works better. Look at the C100. That's a 4K camera. And don't comment. I know some of you are thinking, no, Simon, that's not a 4K camera. It shoots 1080p. Well, it outputs in 1080p, but it's got a 4K sensor. It captures the information in 4K, and then in-camera downsamples it to 1080, and that's why you get such a sharp image. Sure, that camera has terrific dynamic range, great low-light performance, and I don't think the R5, let alone the R6, is going to approach it in that level of performance. But I'm thinking a little bit further with this. To me, the R6 is not just a collection of capabilities that were leaked. To me, the R6 is Canon's answer to the A7S line. Back in February, I released a video talking about the Canon A7S III, and the reason I did that is Canon Rumors had picked up on some information coming out of Canon that they're coming out with a camera that they're going to attempt to kill off the A7S III. I didn't think much of it until those leaked specifications on the R6, and I realized, wow, this R6 looks very familiar to what you would expect out of the A7S III. Now, yes, there's a lot of information missing. Yes, that could be a global shutter and other things, but let's just look at what we've got here. A 20 megapixel sensor, which is not huge, but if you're doing video, what that tends to lead to is you're going to have much better low light performance than you probably would get with the R5. So if you're primarily a video shooter, if you're an ordinary filmmaker or an ordinary photographer, the R6 to me seems like it might just be better for video, and it's going to do really well with photos. For me, I don't need more than 16 to 20 megapixels. I'm pretty happy with 16 megapixels. Most of what I shoot, it goes into my photos. I print out booklets. I might print 4x6s. Rarely do I print an 8x10. And 20 megapixel file, if it's detailed without a lot of noise, that's more than high enough of a resolution. Now, if you're aiming to be a professional where basically this is your job, you make money from this, spending that extra to get that more detail, that 45 megapixels, I would say is the right thing to do if you're primarily on photos and doing videos. But if you're primarily doing video work, I get a sense that the R6 might be the best camera for the ordinary filmmaker. I'm still on the waiting list for the R5. But I'm eagerly awaiting the announcement on July the 9th, and I'm going to cover that as soon as the information comes out. And what I'm looking to see is, which is going to be the best camera for the ordinary filmmaker based on the capabilities that I've shared with you guys in the past, and is it going to be the best camera for the ordinary filmmaker? I think there's only going to be about $1,300 difference between these two cameras, and when you look at how much life you're going to get out of it, where you're going to get maybe 5 years more, maybe 6 years, 7 years, these cameras will last a long time, then that difference isn't all that much, especially if I'm looking at, I buy the R6 and then I look at replacing it in 3 to 4 years, but I don't need to do that because I've got the right camera, whether it be the R5 or the R6, and that's why I think doing your own analysis, understanding what you want, the outcomes you want out of a camera, being open to thinking, do I want this? Well, do I want this now? What is my target state? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Will this camera allow me to grow? And so that's why I came up with this capability list. These are the capabilities I need now and into the future. So at this point, I'm on the fence. This is very exciting to me. I think if I wasn't doing the channel, I'd be a lot more frustrated by it. But I'm getting so much news and so many ideas to publish because of this, because of all these delays and because of all this information we're getting leaked out. I think Canon is doing an incredible job of leaking the information slowly but surely.
Don't call me Shirley.
To whip us all up into frenzy. And whether we like Canon or not, this is the news story of the day. And the reason it's the news story of the day is nobody else is really beating the marketing wagon. Sony has been absolutely quiet. So has Panasonic. We're supposed to be getting the GH6 later at the end of the summer. And Sony's supposed to be announcing right after Canon, so in mid-July to late July. It's going to be a really amazing summer. But Canon's driving the news cycle, so everyone's wondering, what is this 8K going to be like? Is it going to be like a 1-minute record time? And I really do hope Canon kills off the record time. You see, that's one of my capabilities. Kill off the record time in 1080, in 4K, 8K. Well, you've seen this body. You've seen it from every angle. There isn't a single angle here that shows any sort of serious venting. Whereas if you look at the S1H, Panasonic's camera, there's a huge big vent in the back, and you can hear that thing when you're recording. So I'm really curious to know how they fix the heat problems. I talked about in a previous video of how if they use ARM-type technology, if they engineer things, well, maybe heat won't be so much a problem. When we first started recording 1080, that was a huge heat problem. Now anything can record 1080 without heat. So there's a lot of speculation. You can see it in the comments down below. Look at all the comments. There's a lot of speculation. And I encourage that. I encourage the engagement. Let's talk about it. Let's have fun with it. We don't have the World Series. We don't have football. We don't have the NFL. We don't have any professional sports. We don't even have the Olympics, which are supposed to be starting, I guess, in about a month. So, or were supposed to be starting. So this is our World Cup, and it starts in July, and it starts with Canon's announcement on July the 9th. Also, that could be July the 8th, because if they're going to hold this, let's say around noon time or 10 or 11 in the morning Japan time or Australia time, that means we're going to get it here on the 8th just before midnight. So I'm really, really excited by that. But what do you guys think? Which camera is of interest to you? And if you're not a Canon consumer right now, if you're Sony or somebody else, or with somebody else, what camera has your interest the most and why? Tell me why. What are the capabilities that you're looking for? But that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Don't forget to subscribe for your chance to win the Canon EF 50mm f1.8, the Nifty 50. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. All equipment used and notes are placed in the description box, show more box, or down arrow thingy next to the title on the mobile app.